Thank you.
Yeah. I call the 47th weekly meeting of the Rotary year 23-24 to order and welcome all. I can see some guests are also there. So everyone, a very warm welcome.
Thank you.
May we kindly observe 1 minute silent invocation for the world peace. Thank you. Now I request Club Secretary Suman to make her announcement. Suman, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Gargi. Hi, everyone. Good evening. This week, we have one birthday. We have Uma Ravikumar. She will be celebrating her birthday on Wednesday, that is May 28th. We wish Uma advanced wishes on her birthday. We have 3 wedding anniversaries in this week. All the 3 are back to back starting from tomorrow. Tomorrow, that is May 24th, we have Shireen and Santosh Nedungadi, who will be celebrating their wedding anniversary. On Saturday, that is on May 25th, we have Sangeeta and Narayan celebrating their wedding anniversary. And on Sunday, we have Jyoti and Sudhakar celebrating their wedding anniversary. We wish all the 3 couples a wonderful year and joyful togetherness.
Yeah.
Moving on to the committee. Yeah. Sorry, anyone?
No, I said clap.
Yeah.
For all of them. Yes, carry on, Suman, sorry.
Moving on to the committee meetings. As you all know, this is the last month for all the committee meetings. And on this Saturday, vocational committee will be having their last meeting. This is being hosted by Shailu, and this will be held in the Bangalore International Hotel on Saturday at 7 p.m. That's it from my side, Gargi. Over to you.
Thank you. I just have one more thing to add here. That is on Saturday, our district DEI committee also is having a panel discussion, and RCBC supposed to be the supporting club. So I'd request any of the Rotarians who would like to attend the DEI panel discussion to be there. I know, Madhu, I will be busy for wrapping up your last committee meeting. So you are excused, Madhu. Other than that, anyone who's available, the timing is 4:30 to 8 o'clock. And all the details are already been shared in our official group. So please join if you can. That's all. Thank you. Now I'd request past President Dash to introduce our this evening speaker, Saumil Mazumdar.
Sure, Gargi. Thank you very much. So good evening to all those who are on the call and those who are through the recording are going to hear this. So it's always interesting when you try to introduce somebody who is your friend and the speaker for the day. The question is, how do you balance between being formal and not so formal? But I know Saumil very well, so I'm going to take some liberties and be bloody informal. So Saumil, don't be worried, I have this. So Saumil Mazumdar is the speaker for the day. For the Bengali dyslexics, it was translated to Mazumdar. So that is something which is a very common mistake that they make. But Saumil, very dear friend, we go back many years from the golfing fraternity. He is the co-founder and CEO and managing director of SPORTZ VILLAGE. You know, in this day and age where many of the startups are trying to milk the cow, which is already the milk cow, which is the IT, product, services, network, all those. Here is a guy who decided, instead of inside out, which means taking the IT product and trying to find services outside it, looking at schools need some help, sports is in my blood and my passion. So how do I ensure that we create a crosshair between the children with sports instinct, but possibly not the facilities, and how do we inculcate this whole thing about sports? Because as Milton said, you know, it's a sports that makes a complete man. He didn't, but he should have, which is what I feel. So what SPORTZ VILLAGE is doing is that while we keep boasting of this 134 crore people, he wants to take 10 crores of those. We also talk of the demographic dividend, how we are very young and we have children. So he wants to tap that segment and ensure that about 100 million or 10 crore of them are able to go through his Edu Sports program. Very well thought out, very neatly done, and enormously successful in many of the schools. He will talk about it in his presentation. So he started this 2 decades ago, little over 2 decades in 2003. And the idea is to partner, especially with schools and academic institutions, but more importantly, also the parents, because the children might have a desire. I'll share a personal story in a minute, but the parents will form a very important role in determining whether the children play sports or not. And of course, a lot of CSR that happens these days, and government and schools and so on. So I did promise to talk about a personal thing and why this topic is so important for me. Back in 1971, I was in 11th standard, and we are in Calcutta, and I'm trudging between the drawing room, the dining room, and the bedroom, because that's the only thing that gives me a diagonal access of 22 paces of run-up. I was a medium pace bowler, I needed 22 paces. So I'm running up and down practicing my bowling, and my dad was in Union Carbide in Calcutta. He comes home, he finds me doing this while he's taking off his shoes. So what the hell are you doing? So I said, Dad, tomorrow we have a cricket match. So I'm practicing. I was an opening bowler, so I said, I'm practicing my bowling. He said, but you have a biology exam tomorrow. I said, yeah, I'm prepared. He says, rubbish, you're prepared. Pack this up, start preparing for your biology, because sports will get you nowhere. And we are talking about 1971 end. Sunil Gavaskar just hit the scene in West Indies. Some 772 runs, double centuries, 50s, you know, man of the moment. So I'm telling my dad, you're wrong. Look at Sunil Gavaskar. And my dad, in his own succinct way, gave me a life lesson which I'll never forget. He said, you bloody idiot, for every 1 lakh people who try, one Sunil Gavaskar emerges, get down and start studying. Saumil, does that sound familiar? And therefore, the whole thing about parental pressure on sports versus academics is something that has always been a perennial issue. And what Saumil has been trying to do is to address it without being either or, but integrating in its own sweet way. So I think that's important. Because he feels that genuinely a holistic development of these kids is possible if we are able to get them engaged with all the stakeholders playing an important role. Saumil is exceedingly well educated. He is what we call that 4ITM. He is the IIT Bombay. He's one of the distinguished alumnus from there from a service point of view. He's, if I may rag him a bit, I'm a senior to him from IIM Bangalore, and therefore I take these liberties. Now, the thing with Saumil, that while he's academically absolutely bright and brilliant, has a very sporting side to which very few of us do. For instance, mountaineering. I mean, for me, getting to Bangalore by overnight bus itself is a mountain climbing experience. But he's a mountaineer, especially in Uttarkashi. And I try not to get in within an arm's reach or leg's reach because he's a karate black belt champion. Okay, so you can see the kind of multifaceted sporting that he has. He is also into, over and above all this dangerous sport. He played gentler sports like badminton, soccer, and of course the inevitable cricket. He never mentions about golf. And just before we began this, I was telling his colleague there are only two kind of golfers: beginners and advanced beginners. Both of us fall in the advanced beginners group. So Saumil, and not only that, not content with all the good things he has achieved as a startup and making a difference, especially in this crosshairs of school, curriculum, children, parents, right? A very difficult four-dimensional model. He actually took time off to author a book. And it's an absolutely nice book. I've read reviews about it. I've ordered the book after our conversation. Get kids to play. So the whole thing is exhorting the parents to say, don't worry about this. We are there to help with you. Get the kids off the 6-inch by 3-inch mobile device, which normally is their idea of sport. Get them off the damn thing and get them into breathing oxygen with open lungs. So it's a very, very well received book, I must say. And the whole idea is sort of getting kids to understand that sports can be a medium for decision making, for being a better human being, and that kind of thing. The effect it has on the body, the mind, the all-round development is something that he does talk about. And it's very interesting because it's very fair to say that none of us will ever say that sports is not important, right? So why sports is not the question. But how and where am I going to do this? Why this kind of questions which keep going through the minds of parents and teachers and others. And what Saumil is going to take us through this evening is precisely this whole dilemma about, should I look at it as sports versus studies or sports plus studies plus. Saumil, over to you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you, Dad, for that kind introduction, and thank you everybody for the time and the attention. Delighted to be here. I'm going to run a short set of slides, broadly talking about, as Dad said, why sports, and more importantly, how sports, and why should kids play, and then more importantly, how do we get kids to play? So that's really the focus of the next maybe 10-15 minutes that I'll take. And happy to answer questions that any of you has during the talk or at the end. Can I share the, yeah. Let me know when you can see the slide.
Yes.
Okay. Just move this. Yeah. So it's the topic of this conversation is get kids to play. And just as a quick context, just to add to it, over the last 20 years, I've now explored multiple models of getting kids to play, and we're convinced that working with schools is a sustainable, scalable model. We've now worked with 2,000 plus schools, 7 lakh plus kids, done more than a few million PE classes across schools. We worked with 100 plus corporates, 20 odd CSR donors, trying to convince them, all of them, to get kids to play. Everything kind of funnels into getting kids to play. So let me move ahead. So let's start with the very simple question of why. Right? Why should we get kids to play? Because if there is agreement on the why, then the how and who and where and everything else kind of comes in. And this is a topic that over the last 20 years, I've not met a single person who says kids should not play. But very often when you actually get down to the business of getting kids to play, the why needs a certain amount of reinforcement. And I'll quickly brush through it because most of you know it. But this is a very important construct to remind ourselves of, that play actually are scientific experiments conducted by children. So they are learning about the world through the medium of play. And when you see it that way, suddenly the whole educational value, developmental value, the holistic development value of play, very often play gets seen as slightly superficial, slightly, not that important. But this is one important thing to remember, and there's enough research to back this up. So when kids play, what happens? The whole range of stuff that we've seen in improvement across physical, emotional, mental health, relationships, teamwork, attention span. Kids are more focused when they come back to the classroom after they've played, as against they've not played. Mental health is a big issue. I was invited to a Project Play Summit in the US by the Aspen Institute last year. the biggest issue the US youth is facing is mental health, and they just don't have enough mental health counselors to handle this tsunami of young, unfortunately, young girls more than young boys who are facing this issue. And the call to the sports industry was, can you handle it and prevent it so that we don't have to correct it later on? And there are enough studies around that as well. So I think the why kids play, there are enough papers around it. Our own work has shown improvements in fitness levels. We've shown improvements on different parameters. We have data to back it up longitudinally over the last 11, 12 years now. There are improvements on social emotional skills, communication skills, girls feeling empowered to handle situations, the whole range of anecdotal evidence that we can keep talking about. So broadly, when kids play, good things happen. I think that. And there are different axes, and each of this is a PhD topic by itself. But we also found that in the work that I've done last 20 years, while everybody agrees that kids should play, adults around the kids who control the time budget, the space budget, the money budgets for the kids to play need data. While they agree that kids should play, everybody wants data. So that's one important learning we had, and that's why you see some of this stuff here. So then let's talk about what happens if we don't get kids to play. Right? Imagine a world where kids are not playing anymore. Right? That doesn't sound like a good world for a variety of reasons. And even more today, where we're living in this world, which is getting even more divided. And, the ability to handle different opinions, ability to deal with strangers, ability to deal with confrontation, ability to resolve disputes. And as kids play, they learn all this. And we should be worried that we're developing a generation of kids who don't have some of these skills. When they, as adults, enter the workforce, when they become society leaders, how are they going to resolve disputes if they not had the experience of that? And play is a free medium. It's there. It's not owned by anybody. It's available. All I am doing as a company is presenting sport and play in a context that people can consume. One other important question to ask is, what is success when we get kids to play? And this is a very important notion, because very often the elite sports and the performance sports and the careers in sports hijacks the attention. And like that said, the reality is, out of 1 lakh kid, 1 lakh people, 1 Gavaskar, or maybe more than 1 lakh people, 1 Gavaskar. But all of us around this room have learned history, biology, civics, geography. I presume most of us are not historians or biologists or right? Geologists, or whichever the careers there are. So why did we learn all that? Why was it taught? Why did we not give it up at 7th, 8th standard or even earlier? Because it's part of education. And therefore, it's very important to be clear as to what is success. If we take success only as winning medals, you end up expanding the gap between the 0.00001% of kids who are good in sport and the remaining who are not so good or not so good naturally in the beginning, and the gap keeps increasing. And that's a big problem we have today. More than 60 to 70% of kids drop out of organized sport because of parental pressure or coach pressure, because the focus is success is you will get into a team. Success is you will get selected for an IPL team. And whereas that is not very often the reasons kids play. So definition of success when you get kids to play is a very important part. And we want to remind people that success does not have to be only winning medals. It should also be a generation of kids who fall in love with play, stay healthy and fit, mentally, physically, socially, and develop like all of us have done in very different subjects. So, therefore, how can we get kids to play? Right? If we agree with why should they play, if we agree with what happens if we don't play, if we agree with the definition of success, which is not just elite sport, not just winning medals, and the reality is that the best nations who are winning the highest medals have also the highest obesity rates. So it's not that the elite winning is creating a generation of kids who are all playing and healthy and fit. So something is broken. This argument that if you have enough elite winners, inspirationally or overall the rest of the country improves is broken. After 2008 Olympics, the study was done. There was no improvement, which happened in Beijing. There was no improvement in the fitness levels of the average population. So the link between elite sport performance and grassroots everyday child playing is broken. But the lot of public money goes towards elite sports participation. Lot of public money or even private grants go towards elite because it is glamorous. It gets seen as national pride, which is fine, and we should clap for it. And I clap the most when we win a medal. But to make it at the cost of all kids playing is where we need to ask a question. And therefore, what should be first and what should be second? Our view is that if we get enough kids to play, serendipitously, some kids will win medals. But the starting point of success should be all kids playing. Just as all kids learn maths, all kids learn science. It's not a choice that they have that, oh, if you're not good in math, drop out of math. You, in fact, are told to take tuitions. But if you are not good at sport, you're told to kind of step out of sport. If you accept that it's part of education and it's part of a fundamental grounding of a child, then we need to give it and treat it the way you would do maths or science. And therefore, definition of success is a very important question to answer to anybody who is looking at sport as a medium. Then therefore, how can we? The first and most important piece is kids need to have fun. You want to get kids to play, they need to have fun. It's not about you. It's not about us as adults. If kids have, the only reason they play is to have fun. Now, fun doesn't mean that they're laughing all the time. You could be having a very tough marathon. You could be having a very tough golf game. You could be writing a very difficult book. You could be doing a very difficult project, but you're having fun. The fun doesn't mean that we're laughing and, kids are running around the sprinklers, as they call it. Fun is when they are fully engaged. Fun is when they are connected to people they're doing it with, and they are stressed slightly beyond their limits. When these three things happen, in our hypothesis, kids have fun. Therefore, how do we as adults help kids have fun? And that's one very important point. If you see the whole thing about get kids to play, it's not let kids play. We are no longer living in a time where if I just let my kids loose, they will go and play. The urban context, the semi-urban context, the rural context do not provide safe places to play for kids. It's just an unfortunate reality. And I've traveled across the country and across the world seeing play areas, and the issues are the same. It's a global issue. So it's not about let kids play, it's about get kids to play, which means as adults, we have a responsibility to almost stage manage this whole experience. And if you don't, kids will not play. And we are seeing that for a variety of reasons. And so fun is one important element. As we worked on this piece, we found these 5 factors influencing whether kids play or not. And these 5 factors have to come together very well for a child to play. If any one of them is off, the play will either not happen or it will not be sustainable. Let me give you an example. Let's start with a child. Let's say a child is a child who wants to play for fun. By content, we mean what are they playing? Child is who's playing. Content is what are they playing. Facilitator is whether a PE teacher or a parent or a child himself or herself. Space is where are they playing. Time is when are they playing. The child is somebody who wants to play for fun. But the facilitator and content that goes hand in hand wants to play for medals. And they're pushing for performance. And the space is a very hi-fi, fancy place where you have to have just the right gear, just the right tools to play. Otherwise, you're not allowed to play. This child is not going to have fun because the child wants to play for fun and everything else around is around performance. You flip it the other way around. You have a high-performance athlete, but the space is not amenable. The coach is not at the level that the child wants to be. The program is not as competitive. The time is not enough. It will break. If you have a girl, therefore, what they're playing has to be appropriate for a girl child at that age. The facilitator has to enable that piece. The space has to be comfortable for the girls to play. Very often, the big issue we see is the uniforms that the schools provide do not enable girls to play after a certain point. So there are very small solutions that are required, but all of them need to come together for this play to happen. So here are some specifics on, let's take space. Limited space is good enough. Dash talking about doing diagonal runs in his house is a great reminder of that. kids are fine with limited space. Adults have this notion that we can only play in a full stadium or in a full-size space. Multifunctional play areas that evolve with changing needs and interests is an important part of defining play if you want to enable space. I'm going to present a metric called kids per square feet per minute. When you design a program, look at how many kids per square feet per minute can you do. Think about that. Let me give you an example. I have a tennis court. I can have 4 kids playing tennis, maybe 8 if I really push it in some form. The same space, I can have maybe 30 kids playing football for the same 30 minutes. In the 30 minutes, the tennis kids will hit the ball 5 times. The 30 kids will kick the ball some 100 times. If you think of kids per square feet per minute, you kind of start defining, assuming there are constraints of space and time, which are always there. One other important piece is help kids negotiate play space. Adults around the kids have to help kids negotiate space with the other adults, because there are enough uncles and aunts in different complexes, in different parts of the city who are not letting kids play. And if kids ask a question, they're seen as rude or disrespectful. We as adults who, if we care about getting kids to play, we need to find a way to help them negotiate that space. Because their space is going. Nobody has the voice of the kids. Either space is becoming walking parks where kids are not allowed to play, or there are parking lots where kids are not allowed to play. If you think about it in this whole urban context, there's nobody who has the voice of the child. And if some child speaks up, it's seen as rude. So there is this whole, as adults, we need to figure out how to help kids negotiate space. Time. We found that schools are the only sustainable and scalable way to get kids to play, because as the PE period that happens in schools is mandatory. Some safe space exists. So how do we get schools to provide a positive play experience so that all kids learn and therefore they play for life? Explore after-school programs near schools or nearby academies. This balance between sports and academics is a very important piece. And this whole notion of, sports versus academics has to get balanced. And, it is possible. And any child who plays and says, therefore, my academics is going down is actually lying. Let me give you a personal example. I was also selected for the Maharashtra badminton team in my 8th, 9th standard. Then I was fortunate to be able to get into IIT Bombay. I went into the campus thinking I am the school dude who's played for a state or got selected for a state team and is going to IIT. I'll be like the best dude in town. I could not get into the IIT Bombay badminton team. The team had 6 people. So it is possible to balance, if I may say, high-level academics and high-level sports. People are doing it. Unfortunately, those kids want to play and they want to watch a movie and they want to hang out and they want to do gaming and therefore scores are dropping. So I think we need to hold the line and demand higher from kids who play to say, yes, you play, but hey, you have to clear X percentage. Don't give them a cop-out saying, oh, your academics is bad. The current social assumption is that if you're playing, your academics will be poor. I think we should not let that continue. We should hold that to a higher ground. The other real issue we find is kids cannot synchronize after-school playtime. It's just impossible. Because when you want to play with other kids of your age, your broad height, weight, skill level. How do you synchronize it? Lastly, let the child lead, support the child's interest, focus on fun. There's a big debate around structured play and free play. Free play works, and most of us had free play in our PE period growing up. But that also creates a gap of the kids who are already good playing the most and the kids who are not so good or don't have the initial start getting dropped out. Structure makes sure that all kids are included. Structure helps everybody go up and the gap gets reduced. Lack of structure just increases the gap. And so if kids in school have the structure, then after school, they will go out and play and have fun. Different children need very different types of support. And so the starting with a child is one important piece. Content I spoke about is what are they playing? Why are they playing? Structure the content for you. We found that if I want to get budget from adults, I have to structure it. I have to give an assessment report card. I have to give a data normal curve. I have to show how year on year normal curve is moving to the right. I have to show what we're doing with the laggard kids who are good. Kids don't care about all this. Kids don't give a damn. But adults around the kids want this data. And therefore, if you're going down this path, I think it's important to find the structure and adequate props to reduce idle time. We have situations where there's one ball, there are 30 kids. So 3 kids are hogging the ball, the remaining 27 kids are saying this is not for me. The design, therefore the facilitator, this is a very important point on the facilitator side, teaching versus coaching. This whole sports narrative is about coaching, which means for high performance, which means that the learner is motivated to perform better. And if you tell the learner to run 5 rounds, they will learn and still come back. Tell them to do 100 push-ups, they'll do push-ups and still stay. Teaching requires you to motivate the unmotivated. Coaching assumes that they're already motivated, they want to do better. Most kids need teaching in sports, what is called physical education. What is coming to them is coaching. That I will make you a school team champion. I'll get you to win a medal. Parents also are pushing them towards coaching. What kids need is teaching. That I need to come to the level you are and help you grow from there. And not set a bar so high that only some kids cross it. So physical education as a subject and physical education teacher as a category needs a lot more support. I think they need a rebranding, and we are trying to do some pieces of that with our work. Focus on inclusion, make sure they have fun. This is one very important piece. We found that children are the best facilitators. Peer learning works very, very well. So if you are good in football, can you teach other kids? And we have a program where we enable a child who's good in football to teach his or her classmates. It's cost effective. Kids learn better. Kids learn faster. The kid who's teaching grows as a person, as a leader. So I think there are ways in which we can do this. So if you look at these 5 things, I think there are ways to make this cacophony into a symphony and kind of, really get kids to play. I found over the last 20 years that that's a program called EduSports, that sports equal to education is the only sustainable and scalable way to get kids to play. All off school, off education solutions break because of logistics, safety, transportation, pick up and drop, available spaces, but schools provide that solution. And I think that's the answer. So I took a liberty of how can you as Rotarians get kids to play if with your permission. So here's our simple 4-step solution. Starting from awareness programs around importance of play, create localized play communities, promote, help develop play arenas in complexes. And I think the most sustainable, scalable is support PE and sports programs in schools that you work with. Because we found that when we, through CSR donors and others, add a sports layer, the efficacy of the existing programs went up. People are investing in English lab, maths programs, everything else. But if the kids are not showing up in the first place, attendance goes up. If kids are not focused and paying attention to what's being taught, what's the point of the overall investment? So that adds a level of efficacy to the whole program. So this is the book that Dash referred to. It's a book called Get Kids to Play. So any of you wants to get kids to play, this is designed like a toolkit. It's like a Swiss knife. And you can open the page to whichever problem you are facing, and hopefully it will help you. So that's the last slide. I think we can create champions in life, not necessarily in sports. In life, some of them will be champions in sport. It's possible. It is worth it. Thank you for your time. That's back to you.
Thank you, Saumil. Absolutely fascinating take. I realized when I heard your presentation today that we see sports as an integral part. We've never really dissected and looked at it as an activity by itself, just as you would at sports. So I must say there are so many brilliant points that you had out there. Sports versus academic, teaching versus coaching. Never even thought about it. So thank you for really taking us through a fantastic, fascinating journey about the backside of sports. So love to see if any of the others in the audience have a question or two for you. I certainly have, but I would like some of the very patient listeners. I noticed Gargi has a hand up. So whoever wants, please go.
Shall I?
Cool.
Yeah. You see, of late we are noticing one thing that the mindset towards kids playing, okay, is changing. See, if you look at some 20 years back, parents used to say, no, academics is first. The games and playing here can wait. Now, uh, do you think sports has also become a successful profession over the period of time, and that's why parents attitude changing, or it is a kind of a change in general, like our socioeconomic environment is changing, so it's a change there. So what is the reason?
It's a great question. Sports have historically been a lagging indicator of economic growth for obvious reasons. So once you have economic growth is when people start thinking about investment in sports. That's probably what's playing out at a one basic level. The other thing is, I think there is increasing awareness amongst parents who are now at a certain age that, hey, if I don't fix this in my child at this age, when my child becomes my age, there are going to be some challenges. Because the reality is that most of us have grown up with a very poor physical education and sports experience. And the history of that is the structured PE that we saw military drills happened because US Army folks came back to the US after the war and they joined schools. And they did drills they were used to doing for their soldiers, which is why you do what you do there. That's not what physical education is supposed to be.
Yes.
But that has got taught to us, and we all of us growing up hated the PE class, right? Now, if you hated the PE class, and let's say you're not naturally sporty, you think sports is not for me. So if today your child says, I'm not playing sport, you think, yeah, sure, maybe it's not, yeah, sure, it's not for you. Right. So there is a almost generation of us who's grown up thinking PE is boring. And what we're trying to say is PE can be fun. And that's what our Ready School program is about, but that's a different point. But I think we can make PE fun. There's no God-given mandate that PE has to be boring and mechanical and drill. You can still get kids to play, get them to be fit while they have fun. So that's the second part, that the parents have grown up with the notion. Third, and they're now feeling the pain of that, because what's happening is that even if you have a sports facility, if you don't have the natural, let's say you never played basketball in your life, let's say, let me take you as an example, right? Let's say you never played basketball or volleyball or football or cricket or something else, right? Or badminton. And I say, come, let's play badminton. And you never played in your life. It's going to be, for the first X hours, it's going to be extremely embarrassing for you to be on the court because you're still learning. And if other people are already good enough, you will slowly pull back, saying the gap is just too much. So the current reality is that most adults have a problem setting foot on a playing ground because they don't have the fitness and skills to have a good experience. Because they were not taught that in school. 95% of all sports apparel and gear that is sold never sets foot on a playing field. Never. They all want for fashion. Right? So there is, but the silver lining is, if I take our journey, in the beginning, first 5-7 years, we used to talk about why sports. Why should sports be part of curriculum? Why should kids play? Today, people have got that. Why sports? People are now asking us how sports. How will you do it? How will you implement it? COVID has also made a difference. COVID has reminded people that immunity will come from exercise. So I think COVID had that silver lining as well. But I want to double click on the question that you asked about careers. I think that's in my mind, unfortunately, a wrong end of the question. Let's say I ask you, did you learn biology? Did you learn history? Are you a historian or a biologist? Probably not. Hopefully not. Hopefully not one of the two or both, right? And therefore, why do you learn history or biology? So similarly, moment somebody child is playing sport, the question should not be, are you going to play for the country? Question should not be, are you playing for the school? Question should be, are you having fun? Because when adults ask the wrong question, the children get the wrong assumption that, oh, I should play only if I should play playing for the country. And very quickly, as a peer, you know how good you are compared to your peers. You might say anything you want on social media, but you know in your heart how you compare to your peers on, let's say, playing ability. So soon you will know you are not in that thing. Suddenly people stop playing. If the question is, are you having fun? It's a lot more inclusive, lot more embracing question. Uh, will you play for the country while it's meant to motivate, ends up actually demotivating.
It's true.
Very, very fascinating.
That's become the benchmark. That are you going to play for the country? That is
That's the
what-
point. That's the question. What is success? When we want our kids to,
Yes.
what is success? So if definitely success is wrong, everything downstream is going to break, right?
But you don't play for success actually. You play for, as you said, that you enjoy it. That's why you play.
So
Yes.
if you ask any of the professional athletes, you will find a few things. Most of them did not specialize early. Most of them were playing other sports before they got to this sport. Most of them were playing for fun, and then slowly they started getting selected, and then they got serious. Nobody has started playing. Very rarely will you find somebody who says, 3 years, 4 years, I've been training. People like Agassi did it and they hated it. If you read his book Open, he hated his dad for forcing him to play tennis.
I can see, yeah. Wonderful. Venkat, consummate sportsman, Saumil, he's the best wicketkeeper we have ever had, wicketkeeper batsman. So he's got a question for you. Go ahead, Venkat.
Thank you, Dash. I must admit, this is one of the finest talks I've heard. In fact, Saumil spoke our minds, only he was a lot more articulate. We've all gone through this in our lives. I had a couple of observations. See, when I was in school, I was a late bloomer. I was not a very good athlete when I was in school, but we had a wonderful PE teacher who was a national B volleyball player. And I'll tell you, I had muscle memory, from whatever he taught us when we were in school. In college, I could walk into any event and win the event. I very honestly, because we had such a wonderful PE teacher, but we never got a PE teacher like him in pre-university or during engineering school. We never saw that. Very bad. Sorry to say that. And I have seen my kids also, growing up and going through school. Both my children are reasonably good athletes. My daughter was an extremely good athlete. Unfortunately, I have not found one good PE teacher in any of the schools that they have been, that they have studied in. They've been through three different schools. I always hoped we would have a nice teacher. You made a very nice point that, about teaching versus coaching. If the foundation is not right, I think, we're going nowhere. So we need to work on that. I think it's a great thing that we take back also as Rotarians, that we can work on enabling better PE teachers in our own schools. So this is my observation. I would like your tipney on this, Saumil. Are you working on this particular aspect, getting better PE teachers at school? Yeah.
Yes, I will answer the last part. But before that, first of all, thank you for your comments and kind words. Let me give you a small anecdote. When we started EduSports, we started Sports Village 20 years ago, EduSports 15 years ago. We went to schools and said, we'll help you run the PE program in a structured way and a fun way and so on, with curriculum, assessment, trainer, and so on. I remember one PE teacher came to me. He was a senior PE teacher. And he said, sir, what you are saying, exactly the same thing, maybe not so nicely, marketing material, all that. But exactly the same thing I said to my trustee 15 years ago. That we should have curriculum, we should have assessment for each child, we should check how each child is doing. We should tell the parents, kids who are doing well, not so doing well, how are they improving, track. In his own way, I said the same thing. Trustee said, go win medals in an inter-school tournament. So, sir, he is my boss's boss. What should I do? I did what my boss's boss told me. 35 kids came out to the PE class. Of the 35 kids, there was one Venkat, one Dash, and one somebody else who were very good in sports. I focused on those two. Everybody else, I said, sit on the side. Because my boss's boss told me, win medals, and Venkat and Dash are going to win medals. So the question to ask is, why did trustee ask for medals? Because trustee thinks the parents want medals. So starting point is, as parents who are finally paying fees to the school, if we are not asking the question, now let's look at statistics, right? If there are 1,000 kids in a school, there are 40 kids in a school team. There's a 96% probability that your child is not in a school team.
Brilliant.
But all 100% are paying fees for sports and PE. But only 4% are getting all the benefit. And 96, if I did the same thing for math, let's say, imagine the same thing for math, right? I tell you, hey, Venkat, your son is not good in math. I'm telling him to sit on the side. Dash's son is very good in math. I'm focusing on him. You will create a riot in the school.
Correct.
But exactly the same thing happens in sport. And people are okay with it because the starting point is sport is for sporty kids. Sport is not for all kids. So unless as parents and as whatever social citizens, we change the narrative to say sport is part of education. If I did the same thing that's happening for sports today, Venkat, for maths, there will be riots in schools.
Very interesting.
Right?
Beautiful. Very well said.
Construct is wrong. And the trustees are responding to what they think parents want. Parents are keeping quiet because, hey, maybe my child might win a medal. So it's almost like a tragedy of the commons, right? It's everybody's baby is nobody's baby. Everybody is concerned.
Very true.
Right? Everybody is concerned. I have not met in the last 20 years, and I have met a lot of people. Not one person who said kids should not play. But when you get into the next level of detail as to, okay, now why are the kids not playing? Everybody shrugs their shoulders. There's no space, there's no PE teacher, there's trustee wants this, parents want this. Parents are us only, no? I mean, who is parents? People
Correct.
like us. If people like us stop buying houses which have no playgrounds, real estate guys will build houses with playgrounds. You stop sending your kids to school which don't have playgrounds, school will be forced to do it. See, the problem is not policy, problem is not regulation. CBSE requires you to have a 2-acre space. But a 2-acre space gets used for bus parking.
1 acre now.
Now 1 acre, right? So then if there's no pushback to this, that's what I meant.
You shrunk
Who
the
is
ground.
the voice of the child? There's nobody who's the voice of the child.
Very true. Very well said.
Somebody has to be the voice of the child.
Could
Yeah,
I
thank you,
ask,
Saumil.
Yeah.
could I ask a contrarian view from a parent's perspective? Why do I support sport? I've been a sportsman myself. But the dilemma that we face is because both my kids went through sport right through their years. Coming from Australia, it's every year they have to play sport. Every Saturday, they've got to go out somewhere, summer or winter. But the question ultimately is that you need to then think about how are they going to put food on their own table in the future? If it's through sport, great. But if it's not, then what do you then ask your kids to do?
May I ask you, did you learn history to put food on a table? Did you learn geography to put food on a table?
See, that was part of the education, but then
Exactly.
But the question, okay, but then I still had to get an education as an engineering degree and an MBA to then create a profession because my sport was not going to put food on my table.
So, but that's a wrong starting point. I'm not saying sport should be to put food on a table at all. I'm saying we're asking the wrong question. Why is sports equal to food on a table? Why is history not equal to food on a table? Why is civics not equal to food on a table?
No,
Why
but I
do
suppose,
stop doing that?
okay, so because your point of view is that the parents are now restricting kids from playing sport because they don't see the benefits of sport. But the reality ultimately is, how do you then inculcate into the kids that they can put their own food on their own table into the future because their sport career ends at 35. Yes.
Again, my view, and this is, as you call it, a contrarian view, given the current context, is that food on a table is a wrong measure of success for sports. Right? Parents should, why did I learn biology? Why did I learn history? Why did I learn geography? It was never to put food on a table. But my parents did not let me do badly in any of the subjects. But why are they letting me do badly on sports? Why is the question of food on a table not asked when I'm learning civics? Cut out time from civics studying and let me play, no? So I'm saying, you see the point, I'm just reversing the gaze. There are enough other subjects in a child's curriculum which are not for food on a table. But why single out sport for food on a table?
So what does that child do after 35 once their sporting career is finished?
That's my point. It's not about sporting career. They are playing for fun. It's not play for a career at all. It's sports as part of education. Like you are not, I'm assuming if you learn biology, you're not a biologist, right? No, you're not a historian. So none of us took history as a career. None of us took biology as a career.
Very interesting, Ganesh. So the point is this about sports, not about Olympics, right? Yes.
Correct. Yes. Right.
Uh,
So, okay. So my kids have played sport and I accept that, okay, it has been an integral part of our family for the long period of time. But at some point, you then need to ask the question once they finish whatever the education or go out of the nest for, for under the wings of the parents, what are they going to do for themselves? But it's also a valid thing. It's because they need to think about how they're going to put, food at the table is the basic need. But anything else that they need to do, they need to start with that says, well, where is my money going to come from?
Yeah, I'm questioning the question.
Ganesh,
Yeah.
there's an interesting point. May I come in with a quick one? I know we have Sushila has a hands up, but Sushila, with your
We have a couple of hands raised. And also, Saumil, before you take up the next question, there are a couple of very good appreciation of what you have spoken here in the chat box. So thank you very much. Okay. And also, I'd request for an extension of about, say, 15 minutes. I hope that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sushila,
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Hi, Saumil, that was very interesting. The way I see it, I work in the area of prevention of non-communicable diseases. And so I see sports as being an extremely important pillar, something that lays the foundation for good health for the rest of our lives. So for me, it is more about building a certain rigor, building a certain discipline, building a foundation in making sure that we live a healthy life later on than looking at it as a subject. So for me, that's my view. But
Yes.
I wanted to specifically ask you a question around mental health. And do you see a relationship? And do you have some examples of especially today, because we see so much of so many instances where we're talking about children and mental health as being a big crisis that is in the making?
Yes. Answer is yes. Like I said, even in the US, they are looking at youth sports as a way to prevent this mental health tsunami that they're expecting to come in. So the answer is yes. The question as the real solution as always is in the details, right? The devil or the God, which is sport can also exacerbate mental health issues, because if you feel excluded in the sports experience, you're only making it worse. Or sports can, so it's a great medium. So the way we see it is, look at sports as something there are very few things kids actually want to do. Play is one of them. Kids don't want to learn maths, kids don't want to learn science, they don't want to learn history, they don't want to learn biology. They want to play. So can we use this inherent magnetism of play to achieve what we think is good for kids? Right? And therefore, curating that experience is the most important work adults can do. But that symphony can become a cacophony very, very quickly if those 5 things are not in place. And that's why we're calling it get kids to play. Adults have to play that role. I think we have abdicated our role in that symphony. Yeah. Right? And then each player is doing their own stuff. And therefore pushing back and saying, like you said, sports for health suddenly takes away all questions about career and everything else, right? It's a very fundamental requirement. And if we're going to have healthy and fit kids for life, automatically you'll see all the downstream benefits of reduced medical expenses, reduced issues and so on. But mental health specifically, we have data. There is enough data available on how sports can help. In fact, today I posted about a study that came in by women in sports about how depression in girls can be addressed through sports.
I'd love to pick up with you on that later, Saumil. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Madhu, I think Madhu has a question. Madhu, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. That was a very engaging discussion, engaging presentation. I had a question about compliance. You mentioned that the CBSE schools are required to have a 2-acre campus in order to get the whatever the approvals or whatever. However, what I find is there are these new schools called techno schools, called Narayana and Chaitanya is very famous in Bangalore. And personally, I'm very against those kind of schools where such compliance matters don't aren't even considered. It is more like an extension of coaching class.
Yes.
Such schools. So, is there any kind of system to, I don't know, penalize or prevent this kind of? I'm just thinking aloud.
Yeah. I mean, in the role that I play as a sports entrepreneur, trying to get kids to play, I have learned that there's only so much I can influence, and I can't influence CBSE, nor can I influence governments. Therefore, our program is designed to work in limited space. So we've flipped the thing to say whatever space they have, techno or otherwise, we designed a limited space. So we are saying kids should still play even if they don't have an acre of space.
Yes, and they're charging very high fees too.
Yes.
So one wonders what is, what facilities and amenities apart from having coaching teachers to coach.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the regulatory side, I'm not an expert on, so I'll have
to sure. Yeah, that was my question. Thank you.
I had an observation of two, nobody else does. Okay, so let me quickly get on to that, Saumil. I address what Girish brought about, which is this whole construct of sports versus education and sports and education. You're from IIM Bangalore and so am I. Let me take a simple sample size of one of my own batch, right? The gold medalist, you know him, Ramesh Venkateshwar, right? He was a Bombay University level player for badminton. He would thrash all the intra-IIMs. He was the darling because badminton, he would win in the left hand. He was a very good tennis player. So the sporting side of him helped him shine in other arenas as well. He was married. He was a day scholar. He had a child in the first year. He was a badminton gold medalist, and still he got IIM gold medal. So the point, therefore, was not sports or academics, but sports side. The silver medalist, R. Ravi, my dearest friend, 5 years in IIT Madras, 2 years in IIM Bangalore. Ravi was a last 16 table tennis national level player. He lost in the last 16, right? And he was a silver medalist. He got a gold medal for marketing, but silver medal for overall. So for me, what was outstanding is all of us were very mediocre, both in sports and studies. And here were two guys who were absolutely beacons, right? Gold and silver in academics, and still could play absolutely competitive level. And therefore, the whole notion of either or, to my mind, is one of the constructs which actually pushes things down. Second thing I very quickly wanted to say, for me, you talked about teacher versus coaching. And what I find is, as a certified executive coach, a lot of our lessons in coaching are actually drawn from the sporting arena. An outstanding example, many of the Venkat and others on this group will remember, Tendulkar is desperately trying to win the World Cup, right? And he's played in many finals and never made it. And then finally, there is one final where Tendulkar is part of the final team, Dhoni is the captain, and we actually win it. And there is this wonderful photograph of the Indian team with the World Cup, and Dhoni is not in it. And when people are very surprised, they thought maybe it had gone for a leak and they'd taken a quick photograph. No, the truth is, this was Tendulkar's brilliant moment because that master had tried so hard and never done it. And for him, this was the dream realized. And Dhoni did not want to become the cynosure of all lights. He wanted spotlight to be on Tendulkar. And he did that by absenting himself from a World Cup winning photograph. Right? And to me, that's the ultimate sportsman spirit. So the two things that it builds character and whatever else from sports to leadership is a very fascinating confirmation. So it's something that I've always liked. I know we are running well over time. We have another, Saumil, the person who's going to offer the vote of thanks is the person who in the Rotary world is absolutely the Tiger Woods of badminton. without the women part of it, okay, just the sports part of it. And so, Sunil Gargi, over.
Yeah. Yes, so I'd request past President Sunil Pai to give the vote of thanks.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I think we really had a very fascinating talk on sports. When I speak also with children and parents, I cover most of the things which you have put, which most of us know. But you have brought in a few elements which are really interesting. The most important one, I think, is the success. I think that's a very important factor. How do you define success in sports? And how do you encourage children as well as parents and the community to continue sports with this success? Because here itself, we just had an argument or a discussion of what success is in sports.
Correct.
So that is something really fascinating and important, which I will definitely speak and talk whenever I get an opportunity. And the second aspect was coaching versus teaching. I think that is also very fascinating, because anywhere you go, the person is called a coach, and everybody says he's a coach, whereas nobody calls him a teacher, unless of course it's in a PE teacher in school. But otherwise, it's always a coach. And when you say a coach, the concept, like you correctly mentioned, totally changes by saying that he has to do something with the children and take them and achieve something. And then again, your success comes in. What is success? So these are very fascinating points which you have brought out. So thank you very much for expanding our knowledge and our views on sports. I'm sure this will be an eye-opener for many of us, and Rotary will also continue to play a part in sports development in this holistic way. Thank you, Saumil, and we look forward to having more interactions with you, maybe.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Saumil, just for your information, you know, we have a committee service, okay, which is a youth service, we call it. And there is a program called RILA, okay, where it's a young leaders are chosen, and they undergo a few days thing. So probably this kind of platform, we will see if we can collaborate and discuss with you,
Sure.
which we can be seeing. And thank you so much for talking to us. Definitely, it's a lot of learning for at least me. Okay, right.
Thank you for having me. Dad, thank you for the invitation. Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.